Top Med Talk.
Hello and welcome back to Top Med Talk here at Anesthesiology 2023. It's the annual meeting of the American Society of Anesthesiologists. I'm Desiree Chappell, your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, former co-editor-in-chief, Monty Mythen. Hello, Monty.
Desiree, as always, it's wonderful to be here.
It is. I'm having a hard time saying former co-editor-in-chief.
Well, at least I handed over to a wonderful person.
You did, yes.
Professor Mike Grocott.
That's right. Congratulations to Mike Grocott, who had to leave us. He was here for a couple days and flying as my wingman, and that was a lot of fun. Filling your chair over there and doing a great job. But
filling less of it, but he's a fit guy.
Oh, yeah. Come on. Monty, it's been a great 3 days here at Anesthesiology, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, wonderful. Very exciting meeting.
Yeah.
As always, not unusual. As to say, we don't have to say now how wonderful it is to be back in person, but we must remind ourselves that we spent a few years not being able to do this sort of thing.
Yeah. And Monty, it was 5 years ago this weekend that we were here doing Top Med Talk, really for one of our first big shows.
Yeah, the first time that we had our own space as a studio with Smith's Medical, as they were at the time, and, onwards and upwards.
That's right.
We've got almost half the trade exhibition now.
I know, it does feel like it. We could not do this, honestly, without the support of the American Society of Anesthesiologists. They have given us this beautiful booth, this space, and the support to be here. So thank you so much to the ASA.
And our sponsors. So both myself and one other guest he'll introduce himself in a moment now work for Edwards Lifesciences. So they've been a long-term supporter.
Yeah, our founding supporter.
Founding supporter, which is one of the reasons I stepped down as editor-in-chief, because although I'm still lucky to be associated with Top Med Talk, it would be inappropriate with that potential conflict to be the editor-in-chief, because we do run it like a journal.
We do.
Like a peer-reviewed journal.
Yeah.
And even though I think I would have the ability to manage that potential conflict, it's deemed inappropriate. Yeah. So there we go.
Plus, it's a lot of work. So
there is that bit too, but I wouldn't need to go on about that. Yeah.
That's right. Wonderful conversations over the last several days here at the ASA meeting. And this one is definitely no different. We have the opportunity to chat with some older friends, Thomas Scheeren, who is now with Edwards Lifesciences. But Thomas, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
So I used to work as an anesthetist, cardiac anesthetist for the last 30 years before I joined Edwards last year as their medical affairs leader in Europe, EMEACLA region, how we call it, which is an exciting change in my career.
Yeah, big change.
Yes, it was.
Lots of fun, though, I'm sure.
It is, but also lots of work. that I didn't expect to see that coming.
It's having made transition. It is a lot. There's a lot of false perceptions, aren't there?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So if
you miss the on-call at night, weekend.
Yes, very much. So.
Yes, cry over that.
But as I said, at the bottom, I work more than I did in my previous life. So, but it's fun. It's positive energy.
What do you miss?
I miss the practical things. I visit a lot of ORs now, other key opinion leaders in their OR, and sometimes I feel some itchy hand.
They're gays. I got to turn that down.
Give me the echo. I show you. But of course, this would be inappropriate to do so.
Yeah.
So these are the moments I miss my job, but overall, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's it. Thomas, the last time we caught up was actually this past summer at the ESAIC, the European Society of Anesthesiology and Intensive Care. And that was a fantastic meeting.
It was.
As well. And we had some great conversations. You can find those at topmedtalk.com if you want to hear more. That particular organization, we've been at that meeting, Monty, for several years and have been able to talk to leadership now. But we are so excited to be talking to the incoming president of the ESAIC. Thank you. I said the full title earlier. Wolfgang Buhre. It is so wonderful to have you, Wolfgang. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be with you, all of you. I have to say. My career is quite parallel to that of Thomas because we are both for approximately 30 years cardiac anesthetists. He's a bit older than me. And momentarily I'm heading a department in Utrecht in the Netherlands. I'm the first professor of perioperative medicine and anesthesia there.
Really?
Because we make it a bit bigger, the department, and also our responsibilities. And starting from 1st of January, I will be at the beauty to be the president of the European Society.
Yeah, congratulations.
My pleasure, thank you.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of things that you have been working on will continue. Can you tell us? Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the organization as a whole? Because I think they've gone through some transition in the last several years.
For sure. I think basically in the meantime, the ESAIC has developed to an organization with 5 primary interests. The first and foremost is education. The second is scientific communication, including this wonderful congress we had in Glasgow, including all the programs we developed throughout COVID, like the webinars, the podcasts, etc. The third one is the examination, which is quite unique because the ESAIC examination in anesthesia and intensive care is one well-respected examination throughout the world. Uh-huh. Then we have the advocacy. So we try to be the voice of all European anesthesiologists. I think these areas are the core of the society. And together with Monty, with Thomas and a couple of others, we are relatively long active in running research to figure out what are the challenges in research and perioperative medicine throughout Europe. Mm-hmm. And this network has resulted in a couple of valuable publications, a couple of valuable research groups, and that's something we are definitely proud of.
Lots of collaboration.
Very collaborative.
Yeah.
It's one of the keys with the European side. Not that there aren't other societies that are very collaborative, but extremely successful on that front.
It's great. Well, one of the things we've kind of having sideline conversations about, and definitely a hot topic here at the meeting this year, is artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence, which is a word that we kind of heard earlier from several of our guests. And I know it's something, again, we're all very interested in. Kind of talk to us a little bit about where the ESAIC is looking at this and thinking about going forward with, building that into things.
Now, for us, I think it's now the period where we bring the knots together. I think we have to have a strategy on data science and perioperative medicine. Artificial intelligence is one of the cornerstones of this science, and in Europe momentarily there's a lot of investments in that. So I think the time is now to bring, let's say, a couple of databases which are coexisting together, learn from each other, and this will not happen without artificial intelligence. The other big thing is to bring hospital systems together, let them communicate to each other. And I think we had a lot of discussions also here about the possibility of bringing different monitoring systems, patient-related systems together and try to figure out, okay, which quality improvement steps we can make.
Yes.
And last but not least, we, as everybody, has to face an enormous shortage in workforce.
Yeah.
Definitely, there are a lot of innovations which now comes to the market, which really makes it able that things like fluid therapy can be automated, that things like hemodynamic monitoring can be used to help the clinician or the caregiver to make the right decision in terms of decision support. And this is something which is quite new. It was a long way to go here, but I think in the meantime we achieved it and we are close for the widespread use in clinical practice.
That was changing quickly and our confidence is growing in that world very quickly. I was just reflecting on the fact that I was walking in this morning and again I saw another of what appears to be very many driverless cars.
Did you?
Oh, yeah, there's plenty around here.
Yeah.
And you look at it and think, oh, that's a bit weird, but it's probably much safer than all the other cars, actually.
Because humans have plenty of accidents.
It's actually the least likely one to hit me.
Yeah. So we hope. Lots of emerging technology, software, things that, we want to assume or believe that they're going to make our jobs easier. Is that something that, is one of the things that we're thinking about, or how do we think about it? Because some people may say, well, it's going to make my job easier, or it may actually take over my job.
As Monty just pointed, it took us time to convince our community that the devices which are now available are really helpful, that they do not create work, and that there is no risk to taking over the job. Indeed, our job has been improved. We have to do much more things than on before, and because anesthesia is, in the meantime, much more than just giving anesthesia in the operating theater. You have to make the right choices. You have to take care of the patients thereafter. You have to have a look at quality of life. So we need a lot of things, a lot of technology, I think, to allow us to stay in the same amount of quality in our core competency. And I think these discussions became more and more mature in the last 1 to 2 years, because all of us were faced, first of all, with COVID, the pandemic, but thereafter with an enormous amount of patients waiting for surgery, an enormously increasing workload, and on the other hand, are significant problems to keep our people, our nurses, our physicians into the business. So I think it's a different story compared to, let's say, 5 years ago. And the other thing is that a lot of key opinion makers in our specialty, take a lot of time to invest their research capabilities in these systems. Yeah. They become more and more mature, trustful, and I think there will always be a discussion. And recently I did a short survey within my own department and talked to the group of young staff members below the age of 40,
youngsters,
which are very diverse.
Yeah.
And for them, it's technology is something which is part of life.
It is.
And not let's say, something which compromised their career perspective.
Yeah, not an addition. Thomas, from your perspective, first as a clinician, and the work that you've done in the past, but then also coming from industry, how are you looking at this?
We have learned to embrace these technologies that we, by the way, use in everyday life.
Yeah.
On our phones, we have weather prediction apps, which are based on artificial intelligence. So this
maps,
is
driving apps. Yeah.
Yes, but how can we use this technology to improve the care of our patients, to increase the safety of our patients in these times of staff shortages that we just discussed? The technology might help us ensuring that patient level, or even increase that patient level in a lower care environment. And this is why I got in touch with that technologies. And now I have the privilege to work in a company who is providing one of those technologies, who can detect hemodynamic instability or low blood pressure, so potentially dangerous events before they even occur, based on artificial intelligence. And this is a wonderful technology which might improve, or which we will show improves the safety of our patient and the outcome of our patients.
Yeah.
And I think performance characteristics, I was having a great lunch yesterday with somebody who's responsible for a department with lots of trainees, young doctors in it, and a young doctor. And they were saying the more that they can use as a training adjunct, the ability to say, this represents my practice behavior patterns. The reason the person who is the best at this type of thing in the department does things this way, this device is now programmed with their behavior characteristics. You don't have to, it won't do it for you, but if you follow that, you'll become better quicker.
Yeah.
But they're embracing all of that. The other side of it, which we'll get into, I'm sure, is from the research perspective.
That's what I was just going to start.
The human factors have a tendency to overwhelm many of our therapeutic interventions. There's a long, long history of us doing randomized controlled trials where the adherence to the protocol is actually so poor and the randomness in our practice patterns is so great that there's a very little signal despite our best efforts. There's one, I think, classical example where looking at the performance characteristics of a colloid versus a crystalloid, we used to think they were very different in how they performed, the volumes of 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 comparing one to the other. If you do an experiment with humans, this is all published, experiment with humans, there's very little difference between the amount of colloid and crystalloid that's given. If you let a computer do it, so in other words, if you program the computer to give the fluid in response to hemodynamic variables, the colloid behaves as the textbooks say, and the crystalloid behaves as the textbooks say. So the volume difference to restore volume status is 3-to-1, not 1.5-to-1. Isn't that interesting? So a lot of these studies we've been doing have actually been a sort of experiment of random human behavior.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that fair, Wolfgang? I know you're quite interested in this whole area. Not all of it. I over-egged that a little bit. But it's quite hard to get signals separate. You have to do very big numbers to overwhelm the human factor component of it.
Absolutely. I think what we first learned whenever we do a randomized controlled trial and we randomize on the patient level, and this trial takes place, for instance, in the PACU or on the ward, we know that the treatment teams, the nurses on the ward, learn so quickly that it's nearly impossible to do it on one ward. So I have a clear opinion that the time of these classical randomized clinical trials is over. we have a lot of high-quality routine data which we can use, which much more reflects the reality and probably give us the signal which really can improve the situation. And the other thing is, I think what we also learned is that even very big pragmatic randomized controlled trials are too small and in that respect underpowered. So I think real-world data, high-quality real-world data, adaptive platform trials where you bring people together, and a lot of other designs which are much more related to, let's say, the clinical practice, because we should not forget the randomized controlled trials are often done in a very selected group of hospitals, in those which are very interested in this kind of research and often do not reflect practice.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, one of the things that we've heard over the last several days too is with some of this emerging or even technology that's been around for a while, the pushback is the research and trying to get research done for this type of technology. It's tough. So how do you think that we're going to use some of these new trial designs to really kind of get us to a place where the average clinician can actually trust and believe in some of these new things that can potentially make our job better and safer for the patient?
Well, I think a couple of research groups have built up a reputation. The European Society is a research group comprised of about 400 to 600 hospitals. So we have a very big foundation, and within these hospitals, there are a lot of practical anesthesiologists busy in generating data. And what we realized when we started that program, getting the first results, is that this convinces people much more than isolated research in small groups. That's one thing. And the other thing is we really need to connect to our community a bit better than we did it in the past. And that's what also happened here. In the past, we were busy with an annual meeting, a lot of lectures giving by one person, a room more or less full of listeners. But nowadays, we implement a lot of different learning, education, communication strategy. In Europe, we do every Tuesday an Education Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
We monitor things like the clicks on our podcasts, the webinars, quite effective. And our, let's say, speaker population is much more diverse than it was in the past. So everybody who comes up with a good idea, we try to give him a place. And that's a beautiful cooperation with our community, but also with our partners from industry.
I have a question to Wolfgang. Please help me understand, because in my new function, I often come across clinicians when I talk to them about our technology. They tell me, oh, show me the evidence. There is no RCT proving this or that statement that you make. So help me, how can we convince those physicians in realizing that we cannot do randomized controlled trials for every question that we have?
Very interesting question. Because I've spoken about as a mindset of people. And this mindset is based on something like a number, like a significance in a trial, whether or not it is clinical relevant. What we are now looking for, what is clinical meaningful questions? In other words, one of the most relevant clinical meaningful questions is avoidance of complication. Because every complication costs a lot, and this complication is based normally on one patient. And probably you will never cover it, but it will, or it can disturb the whole workflow. The other thing is, I think that a lot of decisions should be made on or based on clinical knowledge. In other words, we had a culture that everything without a proven randomized controlled trial, with or without good methodology, was a higher level than just the assumption that this can improve patient care in a proven way. And we have to accept that a couple of these things are not part or cannot be part of a classical research design. And in that respect, I have a lot of hopes in using real-world evidence data, and probably you get a bit more information to convince others. But I think it will take some time.
So I understand this is not only your personal opinion, but maybe also the opinion of the medical society that you're representing here?
No, I think what we are planning for next year, because we were asked to, is to reconsider the term perioperative study design. because there were a couple of meetings in the last years, and nearly every big group came to the same conclusions that our classical design of pragmatic RCTs is not the way which will bring us forward in the future. So we have to organize that, and then we come up with a position paper on that.
Wonderful. Excellent.
Yeah, it is wonderful. So in closing, one of the questions that I've been dying to ask, how do we go forward as a profession in all of these different organizations to be able to partner with the inevitable transition and use of technology in our space with industry to go forward? Because we can't do it without them. It's part of what's going to be our lives, and already is, really, to keep things going. Because these trials, whether or not whatever the design is, they're expensive, they're difficult to do, and people who want to do it in real world settings don't have a ton of resources. I mean, if you're not academic, you don't have anything. It's really hard to do it. I'm trying to do it myself.
Yeah.
But I also want to keep things, valid and above board, as some people say. But I find that's kind of a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, because we and also our partners from industry had a certain approach to get things done. It was quite often the approach of key opinion leaders, advising, etc. I think the way to go is that we bring these people together, because my basic assumption is we share one common goal, and that's improvement of patient care.
Yeah, absolutely.
And starting from that point, we have to look, okay, what are our ideas about our methodology, new drugs, new strategies to improve patient care? And this needs to be logically in an interaction with our partners. So we will create a couple of forums where we quite open discuss what are the meaningful questions from our community and fit that within a strategy from an industrial partner to improve patient care. And I think in particular the European Union has set up a couple of research programs, funding programs, which are focused on precisely this point, where they actively ask to bring leading academic clinicians and leading companies in the field together to figure out what's our possibilities, what are the possibilities to go to this common goal.
Yeah.
And then it's probably also a bit more simple than it was in the past.
Yeah.
Well, good things tend to come out of crises and burning platforms and that sort of thing. And we learnt a lot during COVID, but also very common discussion now is the staffing challenge, the staffing crisis, I think is a fair word. You don't want to be over dramatic about it, but it's very, very real, which means that we are embracing, and keep saying it, standardization, automation, decision support, remote observation. We have to, because if we're going to continue to do things very, very safely, we have to accept what you can learn from the airline industry, for example. When you jump into the anesthetic room, the indicator should always be on the left and the steering wheel should make the car go to the right if you turn it to the right. And we're making sense there, Wolfgang? Yeah.
This afternoon I will show a picture with a lot of empty wards due to the fact that there are no nurses anymore.
Yeah.
And I will show another picture which shows our remote control area, because what we should not forget is with new technology, we have for the first time in our history the possibility to stay connected with the patient. And the hospital most likely will much more go in the direction of the patient than that we always ask the patient to come to us. And I think, as you said, there are beautiful examples from different industry already doing this transformation, and we are on the forefront of doing it also.
Yeah, in medicine. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. And good luck to you in the next 2 years in your incoming presidency. I'm sure it'll be wonderful, and we'll be sure to catch up with you again.
For sure.
And all those people who are desperate to come to the ESAIC meeting, where is it?
Next year?
Roughly when is it? Where do they find the information?
You find the information on the homepage. It's in the beautiful town of Munich at the end of May, beginning of June. So a beautiful country, a beautiful town.
My hometown.
I was just going to say, I thought, Thomas, you're from there, yeah?
And beautiful weather.
Thomas, will you be having a party?
I was just going to say, you hosted anything.
We have to make the Oktoberfest, which is actually in September. Now when is it? June?
June.
So that we...
Early.
concentrate early altogether.
That's right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. I really appreciate it sitting down with us. Monty, I'm so glad you could catch up with Top Med Talk.
Thank you for letting me back in the
I know. And thank you for listening to Top Med Talk. You can always find us at topmedtalk.com. All of our conversations from the meeting this weekend, from ESA this past summer, and all of our meetings that we go to across the globe throughout the last 7 years are up on the website. So you can find just about anything there. We're on social. Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, we're there. And you can watch these videos on YouTube. And if you like it, give us a thumbs up. That always helps us out. Cheers, everybody. Thanks.
Top Med Talk.
Thanks for downloading Top Med Talk. Don't forget to subscribe via your podcatcher. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And also, don't forget, Top Med Talk is the broadcasting arm of EBPOM, evidence-based perioperative medicine. We'd love you to find out more about that. If you check out ebpom.org, you can find low prices on some of the conferences we're organising around the world. Many of them are virtual and don't even involve you leaving your own home. Check out ebpom.org now.